Hi everyone, hope you are all doing wonderful. So far we have talked about hosting a static website in Nginx. First we talked about just hosting it in a virtual machine locally, and then we talked about hosting it in a DigitalOcean virtual machine in the cloud. But so far the theme has been pretty constant. We have been only dealing with static websites. But most websites are not simply static websites. When we are working with a company, it's most probably their website is going to have some business logic, and it's going to do a lot more than just display content. So we need to deal with dynamic websites. So in one of the previous videos I did talk about the differences between a static website and a dynamic website. Today what we are going to do is we are going to talk about hosting a simple Node.js based application with Nginx. So the whole context of our today's video is that we need to be able to deal with dynamic website, or websites that handle business logics and produce dynamic content depending on whatever the scenario is. So this is what we have in the agenda today. First of all, we're going to talk about dynamic website, and then we're going to talk about proxy, what it is and why do we use proxy, and then we're going to talk about reverse proxy, and then we are going to actually work with a simple dynamic website using Node.js and Nginx. So you might be thinking like, why are we talking about proxies and reverse proxies here? Well, that is because we have to trace it back from the what we are trying to do. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to set up a Node.js application with Nginx as a reverse proxy. So there comes the term reverse proxy. We need to know what a reverse proxy is, right? But before we talk about what a reverse proxy is, we need to know what a proxy is. So that's why we're going to talk about all of these things. Most of you might be already aware of what a proxy server is. It's kind of like an intermediate server that handles requests on behalf of a client. For example, let's say you are the client here. Your browser is the client here, and let's say you have a web server here. In a normal scenario, what happens is you make the request directly from the browser to the web server. But when we have a proxy, the request actually goes to the proxy, and from there it goes to the web server. So you might be thinking like, why on earth would we do that? There are a bunch of reasons, and most of the time the proxy would be part of the network of the client or the browser itself. Let's say, for example, this is a corporate network. So there could be a lot of reasons, if the company wants to monitor all the web traffic coming from each and every employee, then they may use a proxy, or they can even set up caching for all the employees, and a lot of reasons. The proxy server means it is acting on behalf of the user, and that's why it's called a proxy. So with that logic, we can define reverse proxy as a proxy that is acting on behalf of the server. That is, you are the client here, and you have a web server here, but you have a reverse proxy here. The request from the client is handled by the reverse proxy, and then it passes it to the backend web server. It comes here, this will probably in the same network. Now remember, here the box is or the network is here circling the reverse proxy and the web server. In the previous case, it was circling the browser and the proxy. So why do we use reverse proxy? There are a lot of reasons. First one would be load balancing. If you have multiple backend web servers, we can use a reverse proxy to load balance between them. I think we will talk about load balancing in detail in a future video. So for now, just understand that load balancing means to be able to meet the traffic requirements or something, we may have to run multiple instances of the same web server, and a reverse proxy like Nginx will help us do the load balancing. And another use case would be SSL termination. We haven't talked about SSL or how to configure it so far. We will talk about in detail in another video. So far all our web applications are using simple and plain HTTP. Another reason could be application firewall. Again, I think this one also demands another video dedicated to it. Simply speaking, application firewall means you can have rules saying that if a request matches a pattern, you can block it. For example, if somebody is trying to exploit a very well known vulnerability, we can ask the firewall this is different than the network firewall. This is like, on the application layer. You know what, we'll talk about it later. And another important use case for reverse proxy is caching. Using this method, we can actually have the even static or even dynamic content itself cached on the reverse proxy. That way it doesn't have to make a request to the backend server for each and every request. Anyway, there are a lot of reasons to use reverse proxy, and I think we will come across almost all of them in our video series. So for now, let's focus on our use case here. So we're gonna be creating a simple Node.js based application, and we're gonna serve it via Nginx. So what is Node.js? I don't think this is the right video to talk about what Node.js is, but simply speaking, this is an environment, or this is a runtime environment where we can execute JavaScript code outside of the browser. Now, if you don't understand what that means, it's totally fine, but you should actually take some time and understand it as an exercise. So the exercise would be to have a basic understanding of what Node.js is. So why are we even talking about Node.js? Because this is like one of the most famous way of writing dynamic web applications at this moment, and it is used by a lot of companies. And if you are to work as a DevOps engineer, you will probably come across Node.js. This is a good example of managing a dynamic website. So this is the idea. We know what we are trying to do. First, we will have a node application. Let's say it runs on port number 3000. Now this is the actual application. This is the dynamic website that we are talking about. And then we will have Nginx running in port number 80. Remember, both of these are running in the same virtual machine that we created in the previous videos, the Debian 10 VM. So what happens is, if you make a request, you're making the request to port number 80, which is Nginx, which will proxy the request back to the node application running in port number 3000. So in this case, this is our reverse proxy, and this is our application server. Okay, I have SSH'd into my Debian virtual machine here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to install Node.js. That's pretty simple. You do sudo apt-get install Node.js. Oh, I forgot my password. That's weird. Okay, finally remembered the password. Okay, so to recap, I installed Node.js using sudo apt-get install Node.js. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we're gonna create a simple Node.js application. So I'm just gonna create the directory called node app, and I'm going to use vim to create let's say app.js. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simple Node.js application that when you open in the browser will display all the running processes in the system. Now I'm just doing this as a demonstration of what a dynamic website can do. This does not mean that this is what people use it for, but I'm just giving you an example. This is not just a random or static HTML output, but this is something that is generated when you make the request. So if you don't know Node.js, that's totally fine. You can simply copy paste it, but it's good to understand some basics so that if you are working with applications like this, then it would be easier to debug and understand all the concepts. So here I'm just using the HTTP module to create a simple web server inside Node.js itself. So I just initialize the variable HTTP by requiring the HTTP module. Is it called a module in Node.js? I'm not really sure. I'm not a Node.js developer, but forgive me if I said something wrong. So I'm just gonna create a new variable for port, and let's say it's port number 3000, and our application will be listening on port number 3000. So the next thing is like, we need to get the process list, right? So I'm going to be running the ps-aux command that we talked about in previous videos. So we need to run a system command. So for that we can use the module called child process. So I'm going to require that. In Vim, if you do not have any configuration done for Vim, you can do syntax on, which will give some kind of syntax, some kind of syntax highlighting. Oh, okay, I missed a semicolon. So you create a simple HTTP server using http.create-server. Then you have all the asynchronous syntax for Node.js or JavaScript. If you don't know this, don't worry about it. This is how it works. And I don't think this video is the right place talk about how Node.js works. So this one will have listen and on port number, which is port. Okay, we need to do the system command. We need to run the system command, which is ps-aux, and then get the so we will get the output of ps-aux in stdout, and now we simply write that back to. Okay, I think this should be it. So again, don't worry about it if you don't understand how any of it works, but simply understand that this simple piece of code runs the ps or in a ps-aux command, and it serves the output when a request is made to that. So let me just run the application using node space app.js. Okay, so there is a syntax error. Required is, yeah, of course, because it's not required, it's just required. Okay, so it is running now. So I just opened another window. This is again in the Debian virtual machine itself, and if I do net start, you can see the node application node process is running in port number 3000. So if I do curl localhost 3000, okay, curl is not found, that's fine. I'm gonna run it from local. So this is my local machine. Remember, this is the Windows machine, Windows WSL, and this is the Debian virtual machine. So if I do curl 192.168.0.110, because I remember the IP. Oh, okay, it just says default page. Yeah, because we have Nginx running in there, so we need to do 3000 because Node.js is running in port number 3000. Oh, okay, empty reply from server. Oh, that's not good. Okay, there is another error. All right, yeah, it's because I declared it wrong. Okay. All right, so here, as you can see, I made the request to port number 3. So let me just open it in the browser. That would be easier to understand. So I'm opening 192.168 and 0.110 on port number 3000, and I can see the output of ps-aux in this browser window. So now this is not a dynamic page, right? This is not like, sorry, this is not a static page. This is generated whenever we are making the request. So all good. Now it is listening on port number 3000, and we are making the request directly to port number 3000. So in a production environment, we wouldn't want to do that, right? We would want to use a reverse proxy for a lot of reasons that I mentioned in a few minutes ago. So the next step that we need to do is we need to configure a reverse proxy or an Nginx in front of it. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Nginx conf under sites etc Nginx sites enabled. Let's say Node.js, and for this, now this is another server block, right? So we're gonna create a server No. And it should listen on port number 80. And server name should be, let's say demo-nodejs.localhost, something like that. Should be fine, I guess. You know what, if you're confused about it, don't worry about it. Let's just gonna give it demo-nodejs. And you remember the location directory, directive, I think. For every request that is coming to the slash, we're just gonna take that request and proxy pass. So proxy pass and HTTP. A proxy pass means whatever request is coming there, pass it to the backend application. So where is our backend application running at this moment? It's running on the same server, so it would be localhost, and the port number is 3000 because that's where our Node.js application is running. And yeah, so that's it. So we have our Nginx configuration ready. So let me just restart Nginx, systemctl reload Nginx. Okay, so now if I open this from my local machine again, Node.js-demo, this is not going to work. Why? Because we haven't added the Node.js-demo in hostess file, or there is no DNS entry for that. So if I do this, this is just gonna say like domain not found. So instead of that, what we are going to do is we are going to make the request to 192.168.0.110 port number 80, because Nginx is listening on port number 80. But if you remember from the previous video, we can pass the host header manually. So we are just gonna pass the host header as Node.js-demo, or was it demo Node.js? Let me take a look at the configuration again. Okay, it's demo-node.js. Oh, okay, bad gateway. So here, if you noticed, it says bad gateway. Why would that be? Let's go ahead and look at netstart again. Oh yeah, because the port number 3000, it's not running because we did not start the node application. Only Nginx is running at this moment. So Nginx is saying, okay, I got a request, but I don't know what to do because the backend that you specified is not running. So that's what it says, bad gateway. So remember, whenever you see bad gateway in Nginx or any other reverse proxy server, it usually means the request from the the reverse proxy to the backend is failing. So it usually means the backend is down. So let's just start back our node application. So I'm back into the node app directory, and I'm just gonna start it using node space app.js. And if I make the request, yep, so we can see the output from my web application here. So just so you understand, let me just change the application to reply with what should I reply with? Okay, let's reply with the uptime of the server. So remember, don't worry about the application itself, but just understand that here I'm running an system command here, and taking the output of that command and sending it back to the client, whoever is making the request. So let me just run the application again, and so from my local machine, I'm making the request to 192.168.0.110, which is the IP address of our Debian virtual machine. And I'm adding the host demo-node.js because in the Nginx configuration, we have added the server name as demo-node.js. And if I make the request, you can see that it's displaying the uptime from my virtual machine. So it's been up for 42 minutes. All right, so we have a simple node application, and we have a reverse proxy working. But usually when we do this proxy pass, we need to add two more things, which are proxy set header. This means the request that we are passing to the backend should also have this HTTP header set x forwarded for $remote ADTR. So what this means is when Nginx is passing this request back to our Node.js application, it's going to set a header called x forwarded for and then remote ADTR. So remote ADTR, this variable contains the remote address of the client. This contains the remote address of the IP address of the client that is making this request. So when the Node.js application sees this request, it will also be able to see that okay, there is this header called x forwarded for, and it will have the value of the client IP. So this is usually used so that the application itself get to know who actually made the request. Otherwise it will just think that the request came from Nginx itself, right? And we usually need to pass the host header, and that should be pretty much it. We have created our first simple dynamic website with a reverse proxy. So to recap, what did we learn today? So we learned that what is the difference between a proxy and a reverse proxy. We created a simple Node.js dynamic application that will display the running processes in the system, and then we configured Nginx to act as a reverse proxy in front of the Node.js application. So that's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to keep it simple. So take a look at what Node.js means and understand how, the basics of it. I'm not asking you to go and learn Node.js. I mean, that would be good too, but that's not really needed. But it's good to understand how it works. And remember this thing, as using Nginx as a reverse proxy, we're gonna see this a lot in a lot of the servers and a lot of the applications, because whenever we deal with an application like Node.js or Ruby on Rails or anything like that, we usually have a reverse proxy in the front. And so you will be doing that proxy pass thing a lot. It's good to understand from the simple basic stuff itself. I hope this video has been useful. If you liked it, please leave a like, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment. I really appreciate that. Also, I would really like some feedback on how I should structure the videos, because I cannot really see the perspective from you guys' side, right? I can only say this from my side, and I could be totally missing some points that I think maybe not needed, but only if you guys let me know what is working and what is not working will I be able to change the way I make the videos. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.